environment at a personal Welcome to all the participants in today's session. I'm Professor Mary Kalantzis from the College of Education at the University of Illinois, and I'm chairing a panel today to discuss the nature of the training of the police in a time when so many things are changing, not only just because of the new technology, but communities and other aspects of life are being challenged on a daily basis. So we're going to start off this morning by asking Michael Schlosser, who leads the training in a police unit here on the campus. What are the challenges that you as a leader are facing in preparing police to address the challenges of the moment?
One of the things that I think about when I think about academy training, and this is their first introduction, and we are trying to create a culture of future police officers that are community police officers. They're empathetic, they're compassionate, and they understand how to do the job in the right way. And there's a culture problem that's getting better. Okay, I'm not saying everything's awful by any means, but there's a culture challenge not only within policing and police agencies. There's a culture challenge within police academies and the training of police officers. So what I mean by that is, when I think about traditional police academies, the history of police academies, they're primarily paramilitary or military, and it's like a boot camp, and you're constantly being yelled at or degraded, and in fact, in my opinion, a lot of times hazed, and throughout the entire academy. And it's so hard for them to focus on the learning because they're so worried about doing something wrong and getting into trouble. And I often get surveys, and the surveys will say, are you a stress academy or a non-stress academy? And what they usually mean by that is, are you that military or paramilitary academy, or are you just like classroom? And so when I think of stress academy, we're a stress academy, right? But we're not a stress academy throughout the educational and the learning. We are a stress academy, meaning we are going to have our recruits go through dozens and dozens of scenarios from low end all the way up to high end. And it's that scenario-based training that we try to make as real as possible so that they are able to function under that stress. That's where the stress should be.
Right. So I was just going to ask Jen, who's an adult educator, the police, the folks who come into police training context are adults, ready-made, developed adults. What kind of engagement do you think they're looking for and is appropriate for communities of that background?
I think that what Michael's talking about looking at the difference between stress in a scenario, skills development, actual what they're going to encounter as police officers, versus the learning that happens, if you will, outside of that scenario-based development, the cognitive development, knowing that all of these adults are coming in with the two presuppositions of adult learning, which are, it's self-directed. They are there by choice, right? They are there because they want to start a career. They are self-directed. So they want to be in those positions of learning where they are advancing their knowledge and their skills. And I think bifurcating and developing in those, one has the stress inducement and one has the cognitive inducement. And I think that understanding that adult learners, they are self-directed. They want agency around what's being delivered to them and how it's being delivered to them. And they also seek a collaborative environment. And I think that that's something that is forcing us, as we learn more and more and implement more and more these adult learning environments, that we can't stay in that didactic one authority speaking to a room full of students, right? We have to engage and build models of the cognitive development that breaks down that single authority moniker and does peer interaction, project-based work, discussion, both in the classroom and in a digital classroom afterwards. I think also accounting for everyone's learning differences, because by the time we're adults, we know, oh, I learn better this way. or I have this, I like to read about things and then come back and discuss them. By the time we're adults, we are aware, we have that self-awareness. And I think we have to, as educators, make sure that we are talking about those, because that reinforces to the adult learner that they are in this collaborative environment, and we are expecting them and banking on them bringing their prior experiences and expertise.
Right.
Yeah.
So I suppose the focus for our conversation today is the nature of instructors and trainers. And given what you said earlier, Michael, about a persistent culture that exists amongst the academies out there across the country, what kind of philosophy do you have, or do you bring to the possibility of change, you know?
Yeah, we're doing a lot of things very differently than other academies. For example, I want all of my instructors first to have that integrity. I want them to be there for the right reasons. I want them, their job is to work with the recruits and make them, you know, safe, competent officers when they leave, and they need to have that passion. At the same time, I want instructors, and even me as a director, to interact with them as adults. I'm not up here and I'm the director. We are working collaboratively together. So I will introduce myself, and throughout the academy, I will get to know them as people, and they will get to know me as not just the director, but Mike. I mean, we have that, you know, that the chain of command and the respect, and I am the director, but at the same time, I want them to get to know me as a person. Because when they leave the academy and they're in uniform,
Right.
and they're on the street,
Right.
I want them to have these non-enforcement contacts when it's not a domestic and it's not a traffic stop. I want them to get out of their car. I want them to interact with the community, you know, within their community, or if it's a larger department within their precinct, and actually develop relationships and say, okay, I know this person, a lot about them and their
Right.
personal life and just what things they like to talk about. And they know the same thing about me.
Right.
They know that I'm not just a police officer, you know, they'll know that, okay, I'm a dad. These are my interests and these are the things I do. We just talk about things. So when they get out there, I want them to develop that, you know, it's huge to have the community policing
Right.
aspect. And within the class, that's great. But community policing can also simply be a big part of it, is making those non-enforcement contacts.
Right.
You know, you can have all these community policing programs. Some agencies have a community policing officer. Every officer leaving PTI will be that community policing officer. Then when they are having to arrest somebody or having a disturbance or a domestic, they've already built up some rapport and respect. And it's more likely that you know, those types of interactions and relationships will not only make the officer safer,
Right.
but they'll also make the community members safer.
But Michael, what kind of attributes do the instructors need to produce such police?
Yeah, integrity.
Right.
And I have this little saying, number one, leave your ego at the door. It's not about you.
Yeah.
It's about them. You know, I want somebody that's, you know, compassionate and empathetic toward the community and has a good understanding. I want them to be experts in their field, and they go through some processes within the orientation and the hiring process to make sure I get
Right.
the people that I'm looking for. And sometimes I get people that maybe aren't a fit for my academy. And
Yes.
then, you know, I have to remove them from the academy.
Can I jump in there, Mary?
Yes,
Just for a
yeah.
moment? So in listening to you, Michael, talk about this evolution that you've witnessed from being an officer for 35 years, you were
But 20 as a cop, 20 almost now at PTI.
okay. So the evolution that you've seen in policing, where there used to be one community policing officer, and now you expect every officer to have that mindset, right? So that evolution in the last 40 years, let's say, of policing that you've witnessed, I think that the instructional design of our academies is following that same model. And as I was listening to you talk about it, right, the qualities, the traits that you imbue to your recruits that are under your care for training at PTI, you have that expectation of respect, for the community members that they'll interact with. You have the expectation that they will have a broad amount of knowledge, not just basing it on their past experience, but having an open mindset to new theories, new expectations, new mindsets in culture in the field. That is exactly the evolution, that the training requirements that I'm in my research of looking at police academies and their methods of training, the exact same evolution is beginning to happen. And so I think the instructional model is following the policing model. It's not just how have we always done it.
Right.
Right. The evolution of policing is we need to respond to our communities in a way that leads them to safety. Right. And I think what I'm witnessing in my research is seeing the instructional design of an academy curriculum, how that bifurcation of stress when necessary, but then an adaptive and collaborative learning environment when you want them to be developing a modern mindset, a deep cognitive development of the legal ramifications of their work, how to protect their community and themselves within the field. That is happening and I think the same traits are what makes, if you will, the instructor of the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I do a lot of training with my instructors, with my role players, and we have a lot of conversations, and everybody will sit on other classes so that we know we're all on the same page. But at the same time, kind of the old school way of doing things versus how we do it now. Today, we have a better understanding of what people are going through that we interact with.
Right.
And we can have true empathy for people, because not everybody, had the same opportunities maybe that I had, or the same upbringing I had with my family. And if we realize that, people have, mental health issues, people have drug problems, they have alcohol problems, they have financial problems, and then these build up to things where you're getting called when things are at their worst, and the person you're interacting with, remember that they are a good person during bad times, and they've had these struggles. And if we can empathize with that and keep that in mind, so even if somebody's yelling and angry at the police when they get there, they're not really angry at me. I mean, they've gone through so much. They're angry at the situation and all these things that are happening. So we want to develop this sense of empathy. And that doesn't mean there's times where they're not going to have to use their fighting prowess and things like that. But it's like, I want you to have a better understanding of things, rather than just these are the tactics and these are the skills you need and these are your control tactics and this is your firearms, this is how to use a gun. But I want all of my instructors, through the different trainings that we give them and monitoring them and conversations and collaborating with each other, okay, we just had a class go through, what can we do to make things better? And just as a leader, kind of being open to everybody's, giving everybody a voice. And it's the same thing in the classroom. Everybody has a voice in the classroom. And with our way of teaching, our interactions, you're going to get them more involved. You're going to get them more interested, because we know that, that motivation is, intrinsic, and they feel comfortable and involved in the training, as opposed to maybe more of a boot camp where they're afraid to even talk in the classroom because they might get in trouble. So I think that's an important thing to mention.
Can I say that right across the education and training system, society has changed, students have changed. However, educators and trainers as experts find it very hard to address the sorts of things that you say are necessary. So what I'd like you to be a bit explicit about, what are the barriers to instructors kind of doing the kind of, having the kind of goals that you're recommending are appropriate for this moment? They're always appropriate, but even more appropriate now. What are the barriers that would prevent an instructor from conducting the kind of training that you are suggesting, and what strategies, if you can talk about that also, do you put in place to enable your instructors or your community of instructors to change in order to address the sorts of things that both of you are saying should be appropriate goals?
Yeah, when I first searching for instructors, I want quality people.
Right. So the
And
recruitment issue is very important.
yeah, so I want to make sure that and I know a lot of the officers that I bring in, we have officers from around the state, but obviously when you're teaching at an academy that's local, you're going to get
Right.
officers that you know.
Right.
And I know who has the positive attitudes in policing. I know who, care about the recruits. I know that just their demeanor and their personality, and not with everybody. So, it's the hiring process to start with. I need good instructors, and I need good instructors that are on board or kind of on board.
Right.
Because it is throughout their trainings at PTI, their interactions and the different things that we do. And I'm always constantly, talking and meeting with my instructors. And even when they're teaching certain things in the classroom or in scenarios, and then they have breaks and I show up and I hang out with my instructors and we talk and we really try to develop this mindset. And they actually, after a while, realize I'm enjoying myself better
Right.
by being myself
Right.
and sharing my knowledge with these, young recruits, the future of policing. And I have had, I've given officers that I knew a try that I knew that they were maybe on their department, maybe a little bit toward the end of their career, a little bit negative, a little bit cynical. We know cops can get that way. And then I have seen this transformation when they go in and teach the first time, and these students are so excited to be in this new career. They're very excited to be there. They're going to change the world. Excuse me. They're going to change the world. They're going to help people that can't help themselves and be part of the community. And they want to learn everything. And that instructor said, those instructors usually say, when I left my department, or if I had to train within my department with veteran officers, it was really tough, had a lot of the negativity. But when I walk into the classroom with the way we do our training, they're just, it's just like almost a stress management thing for them. I'm still in police work, but it's so positive compared to how some get throughout their careers.
It reminds me, I've heard you speak a lot about the guardian mindset
Mhm.
versus the warrior mindset for officers as they enter the field. And as you're speaking, it's really resonating with me, Michael, that you continue that to the instructor ranks, that the instructors have that same mindset of being a guardian. And maybe you can talk a little bit about those two mindsets. Do you have a guardian mindset or a warrior mindset, and what that means in the field, but also what it means in the instructional ranks at PTI? Because it sounds like that same mindset is what you expect of your instructors.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is part of their training, part of the recruits training. And we want that to spread through the instructors and through the recruits. And this was based on an article, a famous article written several years ago. And when it was first written, just like a lot of articles that you read and you see the title of it, I don't think everybody actually reads everything. And we jump to this conclusion: guardian, I need to be a warrior because this is a dangerous job, and at any time something can happen and I need to be ready. And so I need this person, no matter who they are, they might attack me. So I need to be in this zone of, hypervigilance and ready. And so I usually give the example, I give several, but one of my favorite examples to give is, okay, so here's the difference between the guardian and the warrior mindset. If you have the warrior mindset, you're kind of a us versus them, right? We're the police and we're actually always looking for those bad things to happen, and we're ready because I want to go home at the end of the night. I want you to go home at the end of the night too. But if you have a guardian mindset, think about it like this. I am the guardian of my family, whether it's my mother, my kids, my wife, my grandkids, I am the guardian of them. But I guarantee you, if someone tried to harm them or did harm them, I would be able to, based on training, same thing in policing, I am able to go to my fighting prowess when I need it. I am able to act when I need to act. But if I can walk around with more of the guardian mindset, knowing that I'm confident in all these skills, you know, I can come off better. I can still learn the community and get to know people better. And I'm not sure if that makes
Yes.
sense.
Well,
Yeah.
As a leader of a training unit, you've explained how recruiting with mindsets towards Guardian matters for your instructors, but how do you then scaffold change for those who are within the community of trainers who have a warrior mentality? So does the mix make a difference? Is there something that you do in the scaffolding of the training of the trainers that makes a difference?
Yeah, it may not happen right away, right? So it may take some time. And I don't put instructors in certain positions until, as the more leadership or primary instructor positions, until I'm certain that they are on the same page. So it might just be, this is Guardian, this is Warrior, here, read the article. Oh, somewhere in the article that said, yes, we still might have to use our fighting prowess, right? So
Yeah.
it's you know, they didn't read the whole article. They just see this, oh, I'm a Guardian, I have to walk around and sing Kumbaya to everybody or something like that. And then as they see, you know, I also introduce them sometimes to observing the control and arrest tactics.
Right.
And even in control and arrest tactics, you know, we're still using words that are respectful when we are doing takedowns and control holds and fighting people. And it's so easy for officers on the street when you get into a fight for them maybe to say things they shouldn't say, even
Right.
though they don't mean them, you know, get down on the ground, I'm gonna break your effort, you know, blah, 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 blah. But so our new cuss words and control tactics, sir, ma'am, get down on the ground. And then you initiated a beautiful takedown. And then once you get them down on the ground, get control of them. Sir or ma'am, are you okay? Can you breathe? Okay, I'm going to sit you up. This is what you're going to do. You are under arrest and I'm going to have to search you, and, you know, explaining to people every single thing you're doing. But so they see that, okay, recruits are ready to do that. And then they have dozens and dozens of scenarios where they're using non-escalation and de-escalation training. And non-escalation training, I like that phrase, because how you talk to people, how you interact with them, your body language, your tone of voice can keep the situation from escalating.
Right.
And if we try to think of those skills of non-escalation and de-escalation almost as a physical skill of a takedown or a control hold, I'm still going to win that fight
Okay.
with my words.
So how important is it for you in recruiting both the recruits for police and the recruits for training that they look like the community that they serve in terms of gender and other attributes?
Yeah.
How important is it, and how easy is it to ensure?
Yeah, that we don't hire the recruits to start with. So we train, I don't know, 300 plus agencies in the state of Illinois, suburbs, north of Chicago, down by St. Louis, and those kinds of places. So they all come from different communities and different backgrounds, right? Different communities, different backgrounds, different races, different upbringings. And we emphasize throughout the entire academy, you need to, next time you take a break, I want you to have conversations with people that you don't know. I want you to have conversations with people that are different than you. Maybe somebody's a big department, somebody's a little department. And I think you need to have those interactions, because when we talk about, you know, assumptions, biases, and stereotypes of, you know, the various diverse community members, you know, it's so important to try to reduce those. And it really doesn't make somebody a bad person that they have these stereotypes, because throughout their entire lives, they've seen things and categorized things in their mind, and that you have to do that or your brain would explode. So how do we reduce those? And if I can talk just maybe a little bit about the class I had last night at the end of my class. So I have always made an effort to get to know people, and this is even from my upbringing, to get to know people that are different than me, and try to understand others that are different than me. And it's not just you know, well, I have a friend that's Latinx, I have a friend that's Black, I have, you know, I know somebody that, so I share the story with them that out of all of my interactions I've had, one of the greatest relationships I ever made was one of my closest friends for 30 years. And he was a police officer, and he passed away about a year and a half ago. And we were very close, and we were very different. I grew up in a small farm town, pretty much white. He grew up in one of the roughest places in Chicago. Over time, we became the closest friends, understanding each other. And then we realized how much we had in common and how similar we were, right? So it's like, and so I sat him down and I said, Tony, I want to set up a video camera, and I want us to talk, because you grew up like this, I grew up like that, and we are like, brothers. And so how much I've learned from you. And he says, well, and how much I've learned from you. And so developing those relationships is important. And I hadn't shown that video for a while, because we just talked about race, we talked about policing, and I hadn't shown it for a while. So I was a little apprehensive because I knew it would be emotional for me.
Right.
But I showed it to the recruits last night, and I had them reflect on it for me. And I'm getting back some awesome feedback. And, we've got recruits from everywhere, and get to know them.
Michael, the conundrum though that we have at the moment, and it's not clear why, whether it's access to new technology that allows us to kind of be in a bubble, that we're less able to talk to each other. And that's what the complaint is around everywhere now, that why is it now that we kind of either go silent,
right,
or are less able to reach that kind of sense of mutual understanding? And how do we prepare our instructors, right, to facilitate that in a context that is much more contentious than ever? And it's, you get silence or inability to comprehend each other, which creates the kinds of problems we have in policing and education and medicine, you name it. It's just a phenomenon of our time, unfortunately.
Yeah, the one of the things that is going to happen for our recruit officers, and which is emphasized, is, you can have interactions at the academy with people that are different, that chose the job for different reasons. But it's through experience and those live interactions. Once you get to your community, that's when you get to know your community.
Right.
And actually, most of the officers that I have policed in diverse communities and were already well respected, by the entire community.
Right.
And so they have that experience, and they share their stories like I share my Tony story.
Right.
So if I have officers on the same page, instructors on the same page, and they can talk about their, real life experiences, the relationships they've had, the relationships they had with their community, and how they've managed that, and how they've improved that relationship. And it's nice to be, I'm from I worked in Rantoul, which is very diverse and it's kind of lower SES, but I got to know everybody in my community. And it was kind of interesting, because sometimes I would be interacting with different groups, because I'd get out of my car and I knew everybody and where everybody lived. And I've had people say, man, Officer Mike, you're the only Black guy on the department. And of course we had several, African-Americans on the department. And I took that as a compliment. That doesn't mean I'm trying to act any different than I am. I'm still being Officer Mike. I'm still being the same sort of, regular silly guy with them, and they just get to know me. I get to know them. We're very different, and those differences are okay. And it's all about relationships.
The philosophy of a common humanity, an inclusive sociality. So you have that mindset, and as a leader of a unit, you bring that in, and you scaffold your instructors and have expectations of your instructors. But I want to ask you what you do when you have on your in your workforce those who don't feel like that at all. Right? What do you do in terms of their preparation to shift, and how do you monitor their performance as instructors to ensure that the philosophy that you bring to your unit is one that is shared more broadly?
Yeah, it's important to monitor the classes. How are they presenting themselves? You know, are they evolving, or are they, you know, the type of officer that, just for an example, might say, you know, you don't need to take any crap from people, right? And you can learn that in the break room. You can learn that by monitoring
Right.
them. And if not everybody can be changed,
Yes.
and then they won't work for me anymore.
Right.
So it's a constant search and looking for the right people and trying to mentor them and get to them to the point that I want them to be. But, you know, I've had instructors not too long ago that were teaching control tactics with me on the mats, and they would walk on the mats and then they would do some, you know, demonstrate on some student on how to do something, and then, you know, potential injury or whatever, just to show that I'm a control tactics instructor and I'm tough. That's not how we do it, right? We leave our egos at the door. We demonstrate on each other. We let them demonstrate on us. And if you can't be that person that can come around and say, hey, you know, when you're doing this technique, make sure you put this hand here. But other than that, you're doing a great job. And then you give that positive reinforcement as they're learning their physical skills. And there's something that clicks in them. And there is research on this, that this positive reinforcement is going to help them learn physical skills more than the negative. So I have worked with some and got them on the right page. And I have also, you know, taken them out of the practice.
So the nature of training is really critical, because a lot of sort of the calamities that we see in the media and everywhere, you know, officers say, I followed my training. So the type of training you're suggesting that they get is absolutely key.
Yes. And I tell you what's one of the most rewarding things that I have, and this is, you know, it's been going on for years, and it might be to me, an email to me, it might be to an instructor that taught something here or something here, and they share them with me, and we get these emails back or text, or they call me, because they can call me anytime they want throughout their entire career. And they just say, hey, I had this situation. I'll tell you one, a female recruit that was in her field training, and it was a DUI, and the field training officer was doing the majority of the work because it was early in training, and he could not get the person to step out of the car to do sobriety test. And she said, can I give it a try? Well, she went up there and used her verbal skills, and he exited and he performed every field sobriety test. FTO thought that was great. And so when they send back things like, man, the training kicked in, or it might be, you know, we approached the house. There was one where, and this is another female recruit, we approached the house, and all of a sudden the guy comes out on the front porch and starts shooting at us with a rifle. I was aware of my surroundings. I knew there was a tree there. I knew that if I get distance plus cover, that equals time, because I had trained so much for that. And I didn't have to just start shooting right away. We got safe so that we could talk. Ultimately, he ended up getting shot and lived. But I mean, when they say the training kicked in, this is what I needed to do. So
the
getting those all the
training
time from recruits, just saying, hey, you know, I really want to thank you guys. Keep doing the
So I want to ask you both, what role does the new technology play in assisting these training goals?
First, I'll tell you about my technology is not awesome, but I am so excited learning from this expert here that it's just like, man, we can do so much, and we are starting to do that now. And we have a buy-in from our instructors big time.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, Michael, because the acceptance of new technology seems to be on the high end at PTI, and almost a thirst to augment, not to replace, but to augment their training methods, their instructional methods, their scenario-based methods, the work on the mat with video peer review, written peer review. What do you think? Is it just that you set the expectation that PTI will adopt practices that enhance our training regardless of what they are? Do you think that that's what is driving this thirst, or this acceptance that I feel in working with you and your team?
Yeah. First of all, we want our excuse me, our overall goal is to train the best officers, to be safe, to be competent, to be educated, to be prepared when they get out on the street. And if there are things that I'm learning that can augment that, that can help that can improve us even more, because when officer leaves, I want to get those good emails. I don't want to get something from the department saying, an officer was injured or an officer was killed in the line of duty. And so we take it so serious that we want them to be the best they can be when they're on the street. And when I'm learning about these new technologies, it's like, this is awesome. I mean, 10 years ago I came up with this brilliant idea, and I said, okay, before they do this scenario, the people that are facilitating and role players, I made a little video for them, they watched before, and then the students watched the little video just as kind of a briefing point of things that I thought were important, and then they go do their scenario. But that's advanced so much with the things I've learned from Jen that, man, we're gonna be rocking it.
Right.
Telling you.
So we are talking to you, Michael, as an example of a leader of a training academy who happens to be on our campus. And what you say is very progressive and very inclusive in its goal. How would you disseminate, or how is it possible to disseminate the kind of culture, the kind of philosophy that you have as a leader of a training academy broadly? What mechanisms are there in the country, in the state, that allow for collaborative learning, that allow for sharing of practice? Is it possible?
Yes, I think it's possible. And just to do my cop talk here, okay, I know cops are probably listening. There's still a lot of what we call old school cops. This is the way we do it. This is the way we've always done it. This is the way we've trained. This is what I had to go through, and this is what you're going to have to go through. Times are changing. The recruits that I have in class today, they already know, told by me and others, you are the future of policing. You are the future detectives, sergeants, leaders, chiefs, sheriffs. You can make a difference, and you are the future. When it comes to other academies, I share my philosophy with, we have academy director meetings, and I just set up one on my own for mid-October to meet with all of the academy directors in the state of Illinois. I want to share everything we do. In the old days, it was like, this is PTI, we do it our way. This is this academy, we do it our way. We don't want to share our secrets because we get people, like it's a competition or something. But the new directors, the new training board that's in charge of us, they're more progressive, and they're wanting change. And so I can share the ideas there. They can have everything I have. I don't care. They can do what we do or not do what we, what they don't want to do. But also I'm trying to reach out to, I'm hopefully going to be presenting at the International Association of Directors of Law Enforcement Standards and Training, IADList, and doing some presentations there. There are the Illinois or the International Association of Chiefs of Police or Sheriff's Associations. There's so many different conferences that are huge where the leaders and trainers want to go to. And so I'm hoping to spread the word that way.
So you think there's an appetite for change in this direction, and this philosophy towards inclusive sociality, community policing, focus on humanity. You think there's an appetite at the state level and at the national level to move in this direction?
Yes and no.
Yes and no.
Yeah, it's the policing culture is a tough culture. And it's the old saying is, cops always want things to change until they change. And then they want to do what is, why are we changing? And I think it's gonna take time. It's not gonna happen overnight. I know that there is a police academy out west that actually is being investigated for hazing.
Right.
And if we have, and I know that there's been recruits that have been injured and even some deaths involved in their training. Not a lot, but I read this and it's like, this is the kind of training they did on the mats, or because of all the physical activity nonstop and not being able to hydrate when they should and stuff. So there's a handful of really old school ones out there, and things are happening, but it's like, okay, so now you might have, I hate to say this, but if you have lawsuits, if you have bad things happen in your academy, maybe they will be forced to change by the state, the states that oversee them.
Yeah.
Now, in the academy, in the university and in colleges, change happens through conferences, through workshops, through people getting together. And in fact, this conference that we've put together is about modeling the power of sharing stories, the power of sharing courage, and sharing innovation, and also being mindful of the challenges. So I'm glad you've brought that up. But I want to ask you one more question. Are you satisfied that the trainers that you have reflect, again, the community, that the women and the minorities? Are you able to attract them now as a consequence of this kind of change in orientation to become the instructors in the police academies?
Yeah, that's something that we're working really hard at. And I'm going to be honest, it's not always easy
Right.
to find the diversity that we need. I mean, as far as gender, we have a lot of female primary instructors that are, not just instructors, but they're in maybe not officially capacity, but in like leadership positions, with what they do. And you've met Holly and a few others, and these are leaders. And, when the social unrest happened and all the COVID, and you had officers, leaving, I've had officers call me up and say, I'm thinking about leaving police work, and this might be an African-American officer, and I'm just having a hard time with my family. And then when you also have less racial minority officers in the department to draw from, it's not easy. But we have, especially with my new assistant director, he has been working really hard at increasing the diversity of our instructors, because I think that's so important.
It's hard because it's not an affirmative action issue. It's an issue about, the people who serve the community look like the community.
Right.
It's just a common sense thing. Well, what do you think the barriers are to attracting folks into the police academies as instructors? And leaders.
So one of the things that we've noticed, and I get it, is a lot of the people that we would be great instructors, and you call them up, hey, do you want to come here and teach part-time, blah, blah, blah. And it's almost like normal, everyday people. Well, I've got kids, I'm coaching their baseball, I've got this going on, and it's just like, I don't think I have the time. So many of them we've talked to, it's been as simple as that.
What about the sense of belonging to that kind of entity?
I think that, when they are in a place where they feel like they have time, the officers, would want to make an impact. I know, and they're making an impact on their department, they're making an impact in the community, and I'm seeking them out. Even harder is because we have a lot of civilians that are role players, right? Who we also train in all the police stuff, so they know how to react. And, it's kind of hard to, in the times of the mistrust and distrust, especially by the African-American community, to have them come in and role play, because role players a lot of times are getting arrested. And you can see how awkward that can feel. We had one young man that really was excited to come in as a role player, and he did it for a while. And then he just came to me and he said, Mike, and Joe, he was talking to us, he said, unfortunately, I thought I could do this, but where I grew up, I had some bad experiences with police, and this is kind of triggering that. So we need to be, cognizant of the, trauma informed, and we don't want to have somebody trigger something that happened to them in the past. So there's a layer of difficulties, but those come to mind.
Do you work with the schools or colleges or community colleges to attract people into the instructor?
We have such
cadre?
So we have such a we have such a group of officers that we know that to try to recruit. And we have had students within the college. The problem with the students is it really takes about 2 or 3 years through our evolution and training and mentoring to get them to be the role player, exactly what we want to be, and then they graduate. And that's one of the problems. But if we can find community members to do that, and that would be more ideal, that are remaining in the community.
So we've spoken about the instructor of the future and the attributes. We've talked about the importance of diversity, that we need to work much more diligently in a challenging context to recruit people that look like the community that they serve. We've talked about the importance of collaboration amongst leaders like yourself and instructors, new technologies, creating communities of practice. And finally, we had this idea that we need to modernize what we're doing. And that goes for, all education and all training. What does modernizing mean? How do we modernize these training institutions? What would that look like?
Well, first, we have to keep up with best practices.
Yeah.
We have to be aware of what issues and concerns that citizens have about policing. We have to own that there are a lot of things that officers are doing and in the profession, and not just say, the few bad apples. And, the majority of officers, I believe, are truly good at de-escalating, good cops. I have no doubt about that. And it might be a few bad apples. We can't be using that phrase anymore. It's almost like we're blowing it off. Now there's a few bad apples. No, there's a lot less that are doing these awful, awful things. But then there's another layer that maybe aren't doing their job the way they should be, but people aren't dying and stuff. So we need to take ownership as a practice, as policing, that we need to make sure that we are getting quality people and getting quality people. A lot of policies around the United States now will help, keeping track of officers and the complaints and the things that they do, and gradually it was harder to get rid of them. And I'm going to explain why. Because, if you had an officer that, maybe did something wrong, it's easier for a department to say, if I'll let you resign, from here. Then they're eligible for another department, and then that problem is not solved.
Yeah, just
Now
circulate.
in Illinois, thanks to the progressive, the legislation and the Illinois Law Enforcement and Training Standards Board, that's all kept track of.
Right.
So that's
How-
a step in the
how do
right
you
direction.
think American policing culture compares with the rest of the world? There's been quite a bit of writing about that. How do you think it compares?
Yeah, it's a little different on our responsibilities and what's expected, and there's been
Yeah.
different eras of policing. And I've met different policing, whether it's their police, or whether they're a country by military and things like
Right.
that. And I think we have the potential to improve it to the point where we're still able to fight the crime, put the bad guys in jail. There are bad people, and that's where they need to be. But at the same time, understanding what our role is more than just law enforcement. So I see us as the potential to, be leaders in that.
So that's why we're talking. It's that potential that we want to capture, but not just as an aspiration, but about the kind of strategies you need to deploy to realize that potential. And in your academy and the leadership that you've shown, you've tried to implement the strategies and the scaffolding and the recruitment procedures and the diversification of your workforce in order to reach that potential. I think there's a lot of data, international data, that America has extraordinary resources, extraordinary people, extraordinary education, and yet in this domain, the potential is still unrealized to create the kind of inclusive society and the common humanity philosophy that you have in this particular work that you do.
And I always think of it's what are we doing as a country
Right.
where we're expecting the police to be the social workers, to be the police, to be the the counselors, to be the all these different things, and something that's growing, which is nice, is kind of the co-responder of social workers and
That
police,
collaborative
and
effort.
that collaborative effort. And that's something that, for example, agencies around here are starting to do.
Yeah.
And the University of Illinois Police is probably really on top of that right now.
Right.
And we've already created 2 different week-long academies for cops and social workers to come together for a week to learn about each other and expectations and how do I handle this call and what do I need to know. So, but there also just needs to be more resources for people, right? I mean, how
Right.
bad is the homeless problem? You know, how bad is, you know, the low paying jobs and the trying to work all these different jobs and families and it's just, you know, and can, you know, can family structure be better if people were making more money? I you know, there's just, I mean, that's just,
The impact of poverty on.
yes,
yeah.
better
Well,
said, thank you.
Yeah. All right, I think we've come to the end, but Jen, is there anything that you'd
just-
like to add? That
I have one question for you, Michael, because I know that you came into your role as the director after or while you were completing your education with a doctorate in education. What do you look, when you look down the road and you look at the instructional base at police academies, what do you think is important or will be transformative for the instructional modeling or the instructional methods for your instructional staff to be aware of when it comes to educational theory?
Yeah, I think we could take it a step further for the educational theory.
Mm.
Again, we have, you know, I've created some trainings on, you know, the philosophy of our academy that they need to learn. I've created, you know, the adult learning model and you know, how the proper ways to facilitate, you know, scenarios, and now bringing in more technology and finding the proper use of that. And so I think we're building to that point to where we want to be, but there's no finish line, right? We want to keep growing.
Yeah.
And the good thing about the University of Illinois Police Training Institute is we, if not the only, one of the few police academies associated with a major research institute. So I am able to reach out to, you know, I've done projects with education, with, you know, anthropology, with sociology. I mean, it's just like, you know, with all kinds of different things. And we can learn so much more and improve the policing practice. And that's bringing in that interdisciplinary, okay, here's the cops. Hey, what about all these other people that are studying this stuff? And we can learn from them. It might be a research study or it might just be learning.
Mhm.
So we have that advantage. We like to look
Well,
at.
I think it's terrific to be able to finish on your words. There is no finishing line.
That's right.
There's only
Nike saying.
Is that a Nike saying? Oh no,
Yeah.
I'll have to retract that.
That's-
Um,
Just give them credit each
Give
time.
them credit, all right, no finishing line, because continuous improvement is what training and education in both domains. There are no, even in education, there's no canon that is fixed, and society is constantly moving
Mhm.
and dramatically in our time
Mhm.
right now, and
Yeah.
continuous improvement, continuous learning from each other, and these what's called difficult dialogues. We have to have the difficult dialogues and share ways of addressing the problems associated with those difficult dialogues. So thank you.
Thank
very
you
much.
so
Thank
much.
Thank both of you
Pleasure.
for having me.
Great
Appreciate it.
conversation. You're sandwiched between two women.
That's good.
And I love it.
That's good. That's good. It's been a
Okay,
pleasure.
So thank you all. I hope you found the session interesting.
Take care.
Take care. Yes.